Hello and welcome back to Permaculture Now. It's been a little while since we did a longer video. Been doing a lot of shorts, but we just got a bunch of bare root plants in today. I want to talk about a few of these bare root plants and buying in bulk so that you can actually develop a native plant nursery and edible plant nursery for yourself. A lot of these are native plants that may have some edible uses or medicinal uses, but we're mainly growing them for the wildlife they support. Specifically a lot of the pollinators that are in decline. If we think about carrying capacity of larger elements of ecosystems, really that carrying capacity is going to correlate long term to human ability to live on this earth too. So we need to be concerned about these species loss. It affects all of us. It affects the amount of suffering or joy that is going to be on the earth in the years to come. So planting these natives is very important. Now, a few of these, like our spice bush here, there's 100 spice bush bundle up and 2 bundles of 50 there. This is how your bare root comes. I just got them in some soil because it might be a day or two before I get them planted, but you can see they're bare root. Sometimes I drop them in a bucket of water, but I actually like the soil method a little better. I want to break these bundles apart too and get them spread out a little bit. I'm going to plant them pretty much as fast as I can. So if we order 100 of them and get the discount, the price break, we order from Coldstream out of Michigan, and they have great products and great prices. At 100, you get a drastic price break, and I think these are like $2 a piece. So that's $2 for a beautiful native shrub that is pretty much deer resistant. So it's a good thing to put back in degraded landscapes that have a lot of deer but don't have a lot of spice bush. This was a plant that was used extensively by Native Americans. It's a host plant for a spice bush swallowtail, supports other wildlife. So a great plant that has human uses, has wildlife uses, and is deer resistant, because if you're working large restoration projects, deer are usually going to be one of your big problems that you have. We won't say that they're an enemy, because obviously they have a place and a function here too, but their numbers are just too many deer per acre. We also have elderberry, so that has a great medicinal use. So you can see these guys come, and a lot of times I find they die back, but they come back really strong from the roots. So you don't really have to waste a lot of money trying to buy the biggest ones that you can. The smaller sizes, if they're available, will do just fine, because they're going to catch up anyway. And a lot of these stems die back, especially if you don't get them potted quickly. So elderberry is another great medicinal plant that's native. It's going to support lots of wildlife. Then we have trout lilies. So if some people call them yellow star lilies, I think. I always call them trout lilies. They're kind of mottled look to their leaves. Looks like a trout, kind of. It's a little bit of a stretch, but these are a beautiful little wildflower, and I've heard it takes up to 7 years for them to bloom from bulbs that are planted. So when people try to dig up the blooming ones, the flowering ones that are beautiful, they catch someone's eye and they try to dig them up, and this bulb is just making its way farther into the soil. As they grow, they're very hard to transplant. People have a bad success rate with it, and then you're actually digging up a native stand that's been there for a long time, that's finally ready to flower, and you're digging them up, and then a lot of them aren't living anyway. So it's much better to order this from a reputable source. So these are the yellow trout lilies. So this little bag had 101 in it. We've planted 30 or 40 of them already. We're going to pot these up, probably a couple per pot, and have some of these for our native and edible plant nursery, but also spread them around our property that we're working on, because it's kind of a degraded landscape that does not have these, but it's a woods that should support these trout lilies. One of the next plants we have here, we have our bloodroot. So these are awesome. They almost look like a little turmeric root. They had some traditional uses. I guess they were ground up and used to create ceremonial like paint by Native Americans. They're obviously a early blooming kind of spring ephemeral that is beautiful in the landscape. They'll make themselves comfortable. They'll spread. Great in any woodland restoration setting if you don't have these in your woods. So on the 10 acres we're working on at this project, we found 2 bloodroot popped up through the 10 acres. There might be a few more, but we haven't seen any more. So we're going to add about 50 out here and see if we can't get these becoming more prominent in this landscape that's somewhat degraded. So the reason this landscape is degraded here that we're working on is because of buckthorn, honeysuckle, euonymus, and lots of deer pressure on the natives, and then they're leaving alone the stuff that we actually don't even want to grow. So we're going to get our bloodroot, our trout lily, our elderberry, our spice bush, and then we have some wood ferns. We have very few ferns on the property, but we have found 1 or 2 wood ferns. So we're kind of basing the plant choices off of the plants that are here, the native kind of vestigial populations of native plants that are here. Then we know we're staying more true to what this property would be. Now, as we're clearing the non-natives, we're waiting to see what kind of seed bank is here too. But we want to affect this trajectory long-term, and we want to speed up the process and use this property as an educational tool about restoration. So we're kind of going with the things that we're seeing here. Then we know we're staying true to it if there are some here. It's very unlikely someone's come and planted these in the last, 30 or 40 years. So these are plants that have been here for thousands of years that are now being pushed out, becoming more rare, and we're going to make them more abundant here again. We're also going to make our own resources more abundant. We're going to have more life, more joy, more opportunities to learn. One other plant that we're adding is wild geranium. So these look very similar to the bloodroot. When you're working, you want to keep your stuff separated, but once they come up, you'll be able to identify them anyway. But I like to pull the pots separate. So we usually plant about half and pot about half of what we order as far as these native plants go. So it's a lot of work to get done. So I'm gonna let you guys go, but make sure you're getting started on your planting. The season for outdoor garden work is here. We don't have to wait till May and plant tomato plants. We can plant our natives now. We can have lots of joy. We can be working in our landscapes any day, anytime that we want to. We can make this our earth and take ownership over it. And that means we would start to become stewards again. So that's the work that we want to do. So we want to have lots of joy and create regenerative landscapes, planting lots of native plants that have yields for us, but also are just there for wildlife is an important